Right, so picture this. Early March 2025, the birds are singing, spring is sort of thinking about showing up. And then, boom, President Donald Trump. Yes, him. He decided it was time. Time to talk about tariffs. Again, specifically tariffs on Canadian goods because, apparently, international trade needs more drama. Especially when it involves neighbors. Friendly neighbors, usually. He had his sights set on Canadian dairy and Canadian lumber. He wasn't happy. He said Canada was being unfair. Something about a 250% tariff on US dairy products, which to be fair is quite a lot. But this wasn't new. There was a bit of a pause, a 1-month break from threats against Canada and Mexico, but the peace, it didn't last long. Surprise, surprise. So the threat was made. New tariffs could hit as soon as Friday, March 7th, or maybe the week after. Now, Canada could have just sighed, rolled its eyes perhaps, maybe even shrugged it off as just another political maneuver, written a strongly worded letter, the kind that gets filed away and forgotten. But British Columbia? Oh no, they had other ideas. BC Premier David Eby wasn't about to let this slide. He heard Trump's tariff talk, the kind of talk that could hurt local businesses and economies. And he basically said, "Hold my craft beer." This was a moment for action, not just words. He wasn't about to sit idly by, not when the stakes were this high. While his province's interests were threatened, the livelihoods of many were on the line. He decided to fight fire with, well, tolls. A strategic move to hit back where it hurts. His announcement was quite something. It wasn't just a bluff. If the US wants to play rough, BC can play rough too. This was a game of high stakes. The plan? To introduce new laws. Laws that would make a real impact. Laws that would let BC charge tolls on American commercial trucks. A direct response to the tariffs. The ones driving through BC to get to Alaska. A critical route for many. Yes, you heard that right. This was no small measure. Tolls on a major route for American trucks. A bold statement. It was a bold move. One that would not go unnoticed. A very bold move indeed. It showed determination and resolve. This wasn't just a vague threat. Premier Eby sounded serious. He meant business. He said all options were on the table. Nothing was off limits. To defend the people of British Columbia, their interests were paramount. It was a clear message, one that couldn't be ignored. Sent south of the border. A message that echoed loud and clear. So what did this BC plan actually mean? How would these proposed tolls and measures impact the daily operations of US trucks and businesses? Premier Eby talked about new legislation. A new law, basically. This wasn't just any ordinary law, but one with significant implications. This law would give BC the power, the authority to impose fees and regulations, to slap fees on those US trucks, the ones that frequently traverse Canadian roads, the ones making the long journey, hauling goods and supplies across vast distances, from the lower 48 states, through beautiful British Columbia, navigating its scenic yet challenging terrains, all the way up to Alaska, a route essential for many American businesses. It was a direct financial counterpunch, a strategic move to balance the scales, aimed squarely at US commerce, targeting the heart of American trade routes. The message was crystal clear. BC was not going to back down. If Trump's tariffs hurt BC's economy, then BC would retaliate. Then BC would find a way to counteract those economic blows, to make things a bit more expensive, for American businesses using its roads, ensuring they felt the pinch, for American businesses using its roads, making them reconsider their routes and strategies. Premier Eby stated his government was committed to protecting its interests, would explore every single option to protect British Columbians from economic harm. This wasn't just about money, it was about principle and fairness. It was about standing firm against perceived injustices, against what they saw as unfair pressure from their southern neighbor, from their much larger neighbor, the United States. The proposed law wasn't just about tolls, it was a broader strategy. Eby also told his government to take additional measures to stop buying American products, wherever possible of course, encouraging local alternatives. And he ordered provincial liquor stores to stop selling alcohol from Republican-led states, including, rather pointedly, Alaska. A move that sent ripples through the market. It was a multi-pronged approach designed to send a strong message. Now, how did Alaska take this news? Well, not brilliantly, as you can imagine. Alaska Governor Mike Dunleavy, he was, let's say, concerned. He expressed hope, of course. Hope that the big governments, the federal ones in Ottawa and DC, would sort out their tariff issues. Sensible enough, he also urged everyone, provincial and state governments, to please not make things worse. He asked them to avoid unilateral decisions. Decisions made all on their own, that could mess up the bigger talks, or the federal negotiations. Basically, he was saying, guys, can we not? We're kind of stuck in the middle here. And he wasn't wrong. Alaska is unique, geographically isolated from the US mainland, and very reliant on that route through Canada for so many things. Alaska State Senator Robert Myers, he painted a stark picture. He highlighted the huge potential impact on things Alaskans need every day, like fresh fruit and vegetables. Section 5, the trucker's tale caught in the crossfire. Let's talk about the truckers. The actual people driving those trucks. The ones who would be paying these tolls, or whose companies would be. Jamie Benson from the Alaska Trucking Association. He was, understandably, not thrilled. He voiced some serious concerns about what these BC tolls would mean for his industry and for Alaska as a whole. It wasn't a pretty picture. He talked about rising transport costs, which makes sense. If you add a new toll, someone has to pay it. And that someone is usually the company shipping the goods, which then passes it on to the customer. He also worried about supply chains, those complex webs that get goods from A to B. Section 6, Canada stands together. A nation says enough. It wasn't just British Columbia, that was getting ready to push back. Oh no. The response to Trump's tariff threats. It started to ripple across Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. He also announced retaliatory tariffs from the federal level. So, Canada as a whole was preparing to hit back against US protectionism. It was a coordinated, if feisty, response. Then you had other provinces joining in. Ontario Premier Doug Ford. He announced plans of his own. He wanted to add a 25% surcharge on electricity. That was being sent to the US. Yes, you heard that, a surcharge on power. Another way to apply pressure. It showed that the frustration was not limited to just one province or one industry. Canada was feeling poked. And up in the Yukon, Premier Ranj Pillai. He also announced measures. His government's liquor stores would stop buying American products. Section 7, roadblocks and red tape. The trouble with tolls. Now, announcing tolls is one thing. It's a straightforward declaration that can be made in a press conference or through a public statement. Actually making them happen? That's a whole different kettle of fish. The logistics involved are far more complex and challenging, or perhaps a whole different convoy of trucks. Imagine the coordination required to manage such a fleet. There were some serious logistical hurdles. These included planning, coordination, and execution on a massive scale for British Columbia to overcome. The province had to navigate through a maze of regulations and logistical challenges. First off, BC didn't really have a pre-existing framework for toll roads, a system of toll roads. This meant starting from scratch for commercial trucks like this. These vehicles are crucial for the economy, and any delays could have significant impacts. Not in the way that was being proposed. The new system required innovative solutions and extensive planning, so they'd need to build them. This involved significant construction efforts and planning, or at least set them up. Electronic tolling systems were considered as a modern alternative. New legislation would be needed. This required political will and consensus to even authorize the tolls. Without legal backing, the project couldn't move forward. Then, the actual toll booths, or electronic tolling systems, both options had their own sets of challenges, and staff to run them, or enforce them. This meant hiring and training personnel. It's not something you can just whip up overnight. The entire process was time-consuming and required meticulous planning, especially in the vast remote areas where these highways run. It would take time and money. The harsh conditions added another layer of complexity. Alaska State Senator Myers did point out that there might be some existing infrastructure that could be leveraged, that there might be a slight shortcut. Utilizing existing facilities could save time and resources. He noted that in northern BC, there are existing way stations that could be adapted. There are existing way stations. These could potentially be modified to serve as toll collection points. Trucks already have to stop there. This could streamline the process and reduce the need for new infrastructure. Section 8. More than just money, the bigger picture for Alaska. These potential tolls and tariffs, they weren't just about the price of a head of lettuce or a piece of lumber, though those things are important. The impact on Alaska's economy could be much broader and much deeper. We're talking about a state that is already quite isolated and faces unique economic challenges. This just added another layer of difficulty. Think about high-value goods or things that are time-sensitive, like certain medical supplies or specialized equipment for industries. These often travel by truck because it's the quickest, or most reliable way, to get them to Alaska. If that route becomes more expensive or less reliable due to disputes, that's a big problem for businesses and for public services. Interestingly, Premier Eby in BC, he didn't mention cruise ships in his big announcement, which is curious because Alaska gets a lot of tourists. Section 9. Cross-border chill. What next for US-Canada relations? So, where did all this leave? The relationship between the US and Canada? A bit frosty, to say the least. This whole episode, short as it was, from threat to counter-threat, it highlighted just how quickly things can sour, even between close allies and major trading partners. It's a reminder that even friendly borders can become friction points. When politics get heated, the long-term effects on trade, well, this tit-for-tat approach, it's not great for business, it creates uncertainty, it adds costs, it makes companies think twice about investing or expanding. If the rules of the game can change so quickly, based on a tweet or an announcement, that's a tough environment for anyone trying to run a business or plan for the future. This particular flare-up, with tolls and tariffs, it also set a bit of a precedent, provinces and states getting directly involved in international trade disputes.